I'm making Albert squares, which was one of my favourite slices. It has got currants or raisins and icing on the top with a lemon zest in it. So the ingredients are 125 grams of butter, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 2 eggs, 2 teaspoons of golden syrup, half a teaspoon of vanilla essence, a cup of raisins or currants, 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a pinch of salt, and half a cup of milk. So what you do first is you grease a tin. So you want to have a 20 by 30 centimetre tin, which is around about this size. And it's got some old butter wrapping here. And that's my greased tin. And then you line the base with baking paper. So I've already cut some to size here. There you go, that'll prevent your slice from sticking. And the next thing you do is you cream your butter and sugar. So when they talk about creaming butter and sugar, it is getting the butter to slightly soft temperature, around about room temperature. And you can soften it in the microwave for about 15 seconds, just so it's soft enough that you can kind of push a fork into it a little bit. So I'm going to get a mixing bowl. And put my butter into the mixing bowl. And pour my sugar in with the mixing bowl with the butter. And so creaming it is basically pushing it with a fork into the butter and kind of mushing it against the sides of the bowl with the sugar until you eventually, it doesn't take that long, until eventually it kind of makes a nice fluffy mixture of the sugar and the butter together. This is creamed butter and sugar. You can see it's a nice fluffy consistency. So you turn your oven on to preheat it at 180 degrees C. So have it on bake and not on fan bake. Now I'm going to add my eggs one at a time. And beat the egg in to the creamed butter and sugar. This is the consistency of it. I'm going to add my 2 teaspoons of golden syrup. And my half teaspoon of vanilla essence. And now I'm going to fold in my raisins. I'm using raisins, but you can use currants as well. So that is what the mixture now looks like. Now I'm going to sift my dry ingredients. Oops. So 2 cups of flour. 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and you give it a bit of a shake if you haven't used it for a while to mix up the ingredients. And I have got a spoon in here that I keep, which is now got lost. There it is. 1, 2. And my pinch of salt. So I'm going to sift the flour into my wet mixture and alternate it with the milk. So that's the consistency now of my mixture. Now I'm going to put the mixture into my tin, which is lined with baking paper, and because it's quite sticky, you'll find it tends to stick to the baking paper, so it's a bit of an art to getting it in there. This is a silicone spatula. It's good for getting all the last bits out. See how it scoops it all up there? See how it sticks to the paper. So you just kind of spread it all out there, get to the corners. So now I'm going to use a knife to try and smooth it out. So there is my slice, my Albert square slice in the tin, and I'm going to put it in the oven for 30 minutes at 180 degrees C. So my Albert square slice has been in the oven for about half an hour, and you know when it's ready because it's gone golden, and when you touch it a little bit in the middle it springs back a little bit. So I'm going to put it on the wire rack and just leave it there to cool until it's completely cold, and then I'll ice it. So you don't ice it when it's warm or hot. You gotta wait till it's completely cooled down. My slice is now cold, so I'm going to ice it. And for the icing you have 1.5 cups of icing sugar, half a teaspoon of vanilla essence, a little bit of water, 3 tablespoons of desiccated coconut, and lemon rind, which is optional but it makes it taste a lot nicer. I'm just going to take it out of the pan. And put it on a flat surface to ice it, and I'll take off the baking paper as well. So 1.5 cups of icing sugar. So about there. Half a teaspoon of vanilla essence. And a small amount of water, so you just put a little bit in at a time because you don't want to add too much water and it be too runny. You've got to get the right consistency, just add a little bit at a time. adding the water. And this is the consistency that I want to be spreadable. So now I'm going to spread it on my slice. I finished icing the slice, so that's what it looks like now. And while it's still kind of wet, that's when you put the coconut on. So I'm going to sprinkle 3 tablespoons of desiccated coconut across the top, and it'll stick to the icing. And now I'm going to put some lemon rind on it as well. So to get the rind of a lemon, also called the zest, you use the small holes of a grater. And you're just going to rub it in one direction across the lemon and turn it as you do so, as you get the parts that are being zested. Just turn the lemon. Because you don't want to zest too deep, otherwise it gets bitter, so it's only the top layer that you want. So there you have it, that's the Albert square slice, and when the icing is set, then you can cut it into squares.